Andrew, thank you very much. Firstly, thank you to the club for hosting an important debate today. Can I acknowledge all of those in the audience who wear our country's uniform or have in the past, and thank you very much for your service to our ambassadors here today, and a very warm welcome to each of you in particular. And I point out to those who are watching today, didn't see the acknowledgement of the Ukrainian ambassador before, for which there was a round of applause. We don't often see at the press club, but to respect and to honour you, sir, and your people and what the Ukraine is going through at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know, for the past 3 years, our nation has been beset by some of the most challenging international circumstances faced by any government in our lifetime. Navigating our country through a once-in-a-century global pandemic has, of course, not been easy. But there is no one alive in our country today who has done this before. And on any metric, however you look at it, Australia has weathered the storm better than almost any nation on earth. Decisions taken by the Morrison government literally saved tens of thousands of lives and hundreds of thousands of jobs. We've kept our country safe and we've kept our economy strong. Australia has emerged from the pandemic in a position of strength and with cause for optimism about the future. But we know that we can't take that for granted. The world around us has changed, and we're facing a future that is more uncertain and a region that is less safe. What seemed unthinkable 5 or 10 or even 1 year ago, to be honest, has become our reality. War has returned to Europe, and we are today 70 days into Russia's immoral and illegal invasion of the Ukraine. China's intimidatory use of grey zone warfare tactics, like hacking and like economic coercion, is threatening the sovereignty and prosperity of every Indo-Pacific nation. We live in times echoing the 1930s, with belligerent autocrats seeking to once again use force to achieve political outcomes. If history has taught us anything, it is that when dictators are on the march, you can only preserve peace by preparing for war. You can only deter aggression from a position of strength. And the Morrison government is committed to building that stronger, safer Australia. The Ukraine has demonstrated very clearly, if anyone needed reminding, that direct military action can only be repelled by a direct military response. We know this, and so do potential aggressors. The Morrison government is committed to building a larger, stronger and better equipped Australian Defence Force. We are increasing the size and the capability of the ADF by around 30%, taking the total permanent force to almost 80,000 personnel. We're investing more than $270 billion into defence capability this decade, and we're undertaking the most significant renewal of the Royal Australian Navy since the Second World War. We're revolutionising Australian offensive cyber capabilities, investing $10 billion into doubling the size of the ASD, the Australian Signals Directorate, and turbocharging our ability to strike back against cyber conflict. The government understands that Australia must have an effective, deployable and integrated military force if we are to deter aggression. The nuclear-powered submarines that Australia is building at Osborne through the AUKUS agreement add an entirely new dimension to such calculations. The range, the stealth, the survivability of nuclear-powered submarines make them an incredibly powerful deterrent and capability for our country, underpinning the security of our nation for the next 50 years. But it goes beyond that. We've purchased or built and brought into service significant and serious capability which has made the ADF a stronger and more lethal deterrent. This has included joint air-to-surface standoff missiles to enable our FA-18 Super Hornets and our F-35 Joint Strike Fighters to hit targets at a range of 900 kilometres. We're also acquiring long-range strike capabilities, including Tomahawk cruise missiles to be fielded on our Hobart-class air warfare destroyers, the most potent warships ever operated by our Navy. We've acquired 24 MH-60R Seahawk maritime combat anti-submarine and anti-surface warfare helicopters, and we've built 3 of the 6 planned all-Australian Loyal Wingman uncrewed combat aerial vehicles. Now, in contrast, the Labor opposition likes to speak a big game on defence. But just like on borders, Australians need to look very closely at what Labor says before you see what they actually do in government. When the coalition came to office in 2013, Labor had cut defence spending to the lowest levels since 1938 at 1.56% of GDP. In their 2012-13 budget, Labor cut defence by over 10% in real terms. It was the largest year-on-year fall in funding since the end of the Korean conflict. They delayed, cut or cancelled over 160 projects, not because the projects were behind time, but because they reallocated that money to other higher priorities. Now, we've undone Labor's damage and we've lifted defence spending to 2% of GDP. There would today have been $55 billion less in defence had Labor still been in government. This election is about deciding the choice and whether you risk Labor with our national security.